So Elon, when are you going to tell us more about Project Highland?
There's no, Project Highland. Huh, what are you talking about? Tesla does not do refreshes. There are tiny little changes all the time.
Right, okay, I see. When are you going to tell us about Highland?
Tesla, does not wait around to do, model year refreshes. We just update things as soon as we can. There's constantly changes. There's no big refresh coming.
Right, you know, like the Plaid.
That was a bit of an exception. You know, we decided that we wanted to switch to the yoke and the landscape display and the triple motor powertrain all at the same time.
And you did that in January of 2021.
Yes, that's when the technology was ready.
So it was the start of the new year, and the assembly line was down, and you reopened it with all these new changes.
Yes, that's right. It just happened to work out that way.
So, when's Project Highland?
Oh god, we're not going to drop it while we still have inventory levels of the old dated design.
That's it?
Oh, wait. No. Okay. Listen. There is no refresh. Just buy today's inventory. Great price. Cheaper than a Prius, as proven by Matthew DR on Twitter. Nothing wrong with the current Model 3 design. Perfectly fine. No worries. As soon as we sell out of existing inventory, that's when we'll drop Project Highland.
Okay. This might be a while.
So I thought we could back up a minute and just kind of recap what this whole Project Highland thing is. I saw a lot of people asking for details about it at Investor Day earlier this month, and I think a lot of people are just throwing around the term Project Highland without knowing the source of it, but originally it stemmed from a Reuters report, and Reuters by no means has like a spotless perfect track record, but the reason that I think there's some validity to these reports is Reuters has reported on a lot of things that ended up happening in the past. For 1 year before production and deliveries began, they told us that the Tesla Semi pilot line was going to be at Giga Nevada, and they were one of the first sites to report on Project Palladium, which eventually turned into the Plaid Model S and X project that eventually came true. And most recently, as far back as December, they were telling us that Tesla was imminently about to drop the news that Giga Mexico in Nuevo Leon was their next location for a Gigafactory. All of those rumors about Giga Mexico originally came from Reuters and end up being true. Now, I'm sure you could go back and probably find some news articles of things they reported on that ended up not happening, but because Reuters is saying that Tesla is planning some kind of design refresh for the Model 3, and there's other bits of evidence as well, like the kilowatt spotting, manufacturer plates on clearly some kind of Model 3 prototype that is covering up the headlights, covering up the taillights, covering up all kinds of angles on this vehicle, and we've seen many of these vehicles, as well as new updated rims on these cars as well. They are not the same traditional 18-inch rims on our typical Model 3s that we're seeing delivered right now. So combine the sightings with the Reuters report, and to me, there's a good indication that this may end up happening. Sure, maybe Omar on Twitter is right and Project Highland is just completely canceled, but we're still getting word and leaks from other news sites that are being told things internally, and Tesla's a big company. Makes sense to me that there's lots of leaks and that kind of thing, but let's not stray too far from what the Reuters original report dropping about Highland stated. For one, they said that we wouldn't see the refresh design until the third quarter of this year, so that doesn't mean this refresh is getting announced this week or next week or even the next couple months. And also Reuters said that it would launch in China first, which absolutely makes sense to me. Giga Shanghai is able to roll out upgrades and changes faster than anybody. There's all kinds of design, both interior and exterior changes that Giga Shanghai implements, and then a couple months go by and then we get them in the US. So what that means is the Project Highland refresh might not be seen until August or September of this year, and even so, when that happens, it might just be in China and we have to wait until maybe 2024 before the United States get these upgrades. But the first bit of real new leaks that we got today was from the Not a Tesla app website, which detailed that along with Hardware 4, which has already made its light debut in the Model S and X, they want to accommodate for Hardware 4 on the Model 3, and this will have 3 new camera positions, which aligns with Green the Only's leak of what the Hardware 4 computer looks like. It has additional connectors and pins for more cameras to be plugged in. We can already tell from the Model S's and X's that have been delivered so far with Hardware 4 that the resolution of the cameras has increased, as has the aspect ratio. So even though right now on the Model S and X they still have the same number of cameras as before, there's no new camera positions or anything, they still can technically see a bit more than the old camera positions will. But the more recent round of leaks is stating that the Model 3 with Hardware 4 will get additional additional cameras, and those additional cameras will also come to the Model S and X. So there's a lot of speculation and a lot of leaks and a lot of rumors I'm kind of all mixing together in this video, but my theory, because some people obviously were like, hey, wait, why would the Model 3 get new cameras but not the Model S and X? My theory is because Tesla believes that full self-driving can be achieved with hardware 3. That means that all of the hardware 4 additions and improvements are not completely standardized. Like, they will include the new hardware 4 computer in the Model S and X, but they're not quite ready to accommodate for the new camera positions yet because those fender cameras aren't in production yet, or they're just going to add to the overall cost. So for right now, they just want to start including hardware 4 computers, but not necessarily the new camera positions because, again, it's not necessary to achieve full self-driving. So in the same way that Elon and Tesla have always been saying that, yeah, there's constantly changes going on every week, Tesla will tweak or add or subtract little parts here and there. I don't think hardware 4 necessarily means one set of cameras for all vehicles with hardware 4. I think right now they're just getting the new computer chip, but the cameras are just a little bit higher resolution, a little bit wider field of view, but later on down the road, they'll start including these new repeater cams, which will have better left and right visibility on blind corners. There's a few pieces of concept art out there that point to the idea of what having 2 cameras on those fender systems would have, but in my experience of both riding in full self-driving beta and watching videos of full self-driving beta, there's certainly areas where the car has to creep forward quite a bit in order to make sure that the cross traffic is clear, and that's because a human, based on where we're positioned, can actually look down the road a little bit better with our eyes than what the current camera layout can do. So whether or not hardware 3 camera positions can actually see far enough down the road to achieve reliable, robotaxi access, that's yet to be seen, and I could probably do a whole nother video on the hardware limitations, but I definitely think it probably won't hurt to increase visibility by having cameras that are just more facing directly left and right instead of backwards, and because they're higher resolution, they can see far down the road, and based on the fender position on the car, they should be able to see better than a human can without having to creep into the road a bit further. The Not a Tesla app leak also stated that they expect the Model 3 refresh to get updated headlight designs. We still have no real word on what they look like, but my hope is that they borrow something from their bigger, older brother, the Model S, because those are really cool headlight designs. If they brought those to the Model 3, I feel like they would definitely get a bit more of a wow factor with them. But they said they expect the front bumper camera to also be added to the Model 3, just like we've seen on the Cybertruck prototypes, which it's a little bit off-center, but this is mostly to help with features like park assist, which clearly are taking a long time for Tesla to add via Tesla Vision and the occupancy network, which there's references in code that Tesla's about ready to roll that out to vehicles that don't have the ultrasonic sensors anymore, but no one's actually got it installed on their car yet. And my guess is under 90% of circumstances, the park assist works fine without the ultrasonic sensors, but there's gonna be a few edge cases, not super common ones, but rare ones where the car is unable to see what's directly in front of it because the higher mounted cameras have a blind spot that's like 4 feet in front of the car. So if you're pulling into a parking space forward, the occupancy network can only do such a great job at figuring out if you can actually hit what's in front of you or if the bumper's going to go over the top of it. So that front camera should be somewhat helpful, but I'm still a little bit confused or a little bit worried if that part of the report is true based on a lot of people's theory that the Cybertruck just has a front bumper camera because, for one, it's a much taller vehicle and it needs that help with added visibility, and also it's supposed to be more helpful for off-roading and stuff, and Model 3 probably not doing very much off-roading, but those updated cameras I absolutely could visualize performing much better with full self-driving and having that added visibility. They'd probably be able to replicate the bird's eye view without any blind spots with those additional cameras, because right now they don't really cover everything you would need to recreate the bird's eye view, which so many people have been asking for. Another part of their leak drop today that I thought was interesting was Tesla was planning on updating the interior as well, and while they didn't get into too many details, they mentioned getting rid of the wood trim on the front and replacing it with some kind of Alcantara texture that you may find in the current Model S's and X's. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of the wood design, so I was kind of happy to read that, and I'm hopeful that the updated interior is cheaper to build and easier to manufacture, but also still able to maintain that luxurious premium feel that so many Teslas have. I'm also curious if they'll borrow from All One Art's design concept of bringing in the Cybertruck woke, or whatever you want to call the steering yoke that has all 4 sides. If they brought that to the Model 3 based on a lot of the public's genuine positivity surrounding the Cybertruck prototypes, that could help make it feel a lot more clean and minimal on the inside and also a lot more futuristic than the general just wheel shape. Although based on a lot of people's experience with the Model S and X, I see more people complaining about the capacitive buttons and lack of gear stocks. I think that's a bit more of a concern by them switching to the woke, but yeah, they couldn't go into too much detail when it comes to the interior updates, but there's certainly been something that has kind of slipped under the HD radar, if you will, that people caught on with at Tesla Investor Day. And I'll admit, I didn't notice it either, but there's a part in the presentation where they're comparing the energy consumption of the Tesla Model 3 versus the Toyota Camry, and they use this graphic for the Model 3, and after zooming in on it, it's not the traditional Model 3 design. I don't know if Tesla would be the kind of company to slip in an Easter egg like this and wonder if anyone caught it. And at first glance, I didn't believe it. I saw a few people talking about it on Twitter saying, hey, this does not look like a typical Model 3. At first I thought, oh, well, the back end is a little bit longer. They probably just meant to put a Model 3 there and accidentally put a Model S. But I did an overlay of, the 2021 refreshed Model S and this graphic they used in the presentation, and there's a lot of differences. The headlight design is different. It seems to prioritize having the Model 3 style front, and it's a little bit pixelated, but I still think it has Model 3 style door handles, like the same ones you have on a Model Y. But it's definitely longer. It definitely has a more Model S style back half, which definitely got me thinking, and this could be way too much speculation on my part, so I apologize if this is not concrete evidence enough to you. But hey, all this other stuff is just leaks from journalism sites. This is something that Tesla actually demonstrated in their presentation, and I don't know, I feel like just looking at the Model 3 as a whole lineup right now, there's definitely, in my opinion, a need for some updates, considering Model Y with its single piece castings and production ramping going on. There's so much demand for it. The wait times are still growing for it, so I don't think Tesla needs to touch the Model Y right now because it's just too busy ramping. Well, S and X design, they're constantly iterating. They introduced Ultra Red and introduced a new glass roof option for the Model S, as well as brought the steering wheel option for those who want it. So Model S and X are having some demand problems, and I think we'll probably get some price cuts in the next couple months. But Model 3 inventory is still pretty high, so demand is not off the charts with it. And originally, back with the Sandy Munro interview with Elon Musk, he said, why don't you switch the Model 3 to single piece castings and kind of, update it for the modern times? And Elon said that, Fremont producing Model 3s was basically keeping the company afloat. That's their main revenue stream, but they would consider doing that once they had ramped up Giga Berlin and Giga Texas. And that was years ago. Now we're looking at the point where Giga Berlin is building over 4,000 vehicles a week, and I'm sure Giga Texas is not far behind. Giga Shanghai is ramping up too, and the competition in China is getting a bit more competitive there. So looking at the lineup as a whole right now, I feel like the Model 3 is definitely in their sights to consider upgrading or consider at least updating with more manufacturing efficiencies. But considering the demand levels it has right now, increasing the desirability makes a lot of sense to me too. So assuming that maybe Tesla put in an Easter egg in Investor Day and actually showed off Project Highland and we didn't even know it, here's my theory, here's the speculation part of the video as to where I think they're going with it. So for one, a few people have already brought this up, maybe making the Model 3 bigger and adding a hatchback to it just like the Model S has makes sense when the third generation vehicle platform, which may start with more of a compact car, may start to overlap a little bit too much. If the Tesla Compact ends up just being a little bit smaller than a Model 3, then it might start to eat into Model 3 sales a little bit too much. So maybe Tesla's intention is to make the Model 3 a bit more of an obtainable, affordable Model S. And the Model S's focus is going to be on being a high-range, high-performance vehicle, but the Model 3 will be more focused on being an affordable sedan, but still being very practical and still being fairly luxurious. So another attribute that I think they could be planning is the fact that, hey, we're almost done with the first quarter of 2023, and Tesla has still not brought back the long-range Model 3. It's still not in the configurator. Occasionally you can find one in existing inventory, but at least where I am, that's getting more and more rare. It's harder and harder to find. So maybe the mindset by making the Model 3 more and more Model S-like, by giving it more storage space and maybe making it a hatchback so that you can move that roof column back behind the passengers' heads and then have the panoramic glass roof on the Model 3 as well as the S. Maybe they'd be okay with that if the Model 3 goes more all in with being a rear-wheel drive lithium iron phosphate vehicle. Plus, if you have that hatchback design that's a bit longer according to the alleged leaked design they had in Investor Day, you could probably even fit a bigger lithium iron phosphate battery pack in this vehicle. Couple that with some single piece castings, maybe some more Tesla in-house design controllers. Dare I say, maybe by the time Project Highland Highlander comes out, Cybertruck will be out, and maybe they'll be ready to update the Model 3 with a higher voltage architecture, or with a 48-volt battery to control all of the electronics on the inside. Maybe with some more efficiency gains, they could get a lithium iron phosphate rear-wheel drive Model 3 to just barely hit that 300-mile mark, because I feel like that's where the longer range argument starts to kick in for a lot of people. They're just like, ding, okay, yeah, 300 miles of range, I can live with that. That's a pretty decent range. And then to simplify the lineup, kind of like how the Model Y right now just has long range and performance, with this refreshed Model 3, they'll have a rear-wheel drive, which will get over 300 miles of range, and a performance, and that can have dual motors and be more emphasizing the acceleration and still be using 2170 cells. It won't have the insane range or even the insane performance that the Model S does, but it could bring down a couple more premium features, whether that's the rear-mounted display for the backseat passengers. It could accommodate for a larger frunk, and again, a hatchback design so that it's easier to load things in and out. And if it's a panoramic glass roof, they could use the updated Model S glass that is more transparent. And this way, with all of these features, combining the new cameras, the new hardware for HD radar is probably going to be making a comeback with this as well. Maybe bring in a larger display and that Cybertruck woke design without the gear stocks. And all of this could increase the desirability of the Model 3 by a lot. Couple that with the manufacturing efficiencies of having a single piece castings on the front and back, maybe even a structural battery pack. Then Tesla could keep prices of the Model 3 roughly the same, depending on how high demand is for it, maybe even increase it, and get lots of new orders coming in for the Model 3 just because the overall design has remained fairly unchanged since it launched in 2017. And that way, this vehicle can stay comfortably above the $40,000 margin, and the Tesla Compact, or the Model 2, or whatever you want to call it, that can comfortably occupy the $35,000 or less category, so that there's not too much Osborning going on, I guess. I was also happy to hear from the Drive Tesla Canada sources that they're updating not just the 18-inch Aero wheels, but the 19-inch Sport wheels, which they claim both are going to be matte black. They won't have the silver Sport wheels anymore, which I never cared for the look for, so I was happy to hear that. And based on the Reuters report, and based on the sightings, and based on all of the leaked information right now, I feel like there's a decent chance we could see a pretty significant Model 3 refresh by the start of next year. I don't think it's necessarily something we're going to get in the United States within the next few months or even late in the year. I think Tesla's main focus for the US right now is going to be Cybertruck production. But what do you guys think? Do any of these reports sound believable? Do you think it's all a joke? Do you think it's all a distraction? Feel free to let me know down in the comments below. And thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. It seriously helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. Have an excellent rest of your day.